Hello, everybody. This is Terence's Take for the week of Monday, March 18th, 2019. You can find me at Forbes.com, CNN.com, MSNBC contributor, ESPN Outside the Lines on occasion, and, of course, every Sunday night on WSB here in Atlanta, Georgia, Channel 2, 11:30 p.m. And this is one of my all-time favorite guests, Charles Davis, outstanding Fox Sports football expert, does all kind of great stuff. And I want to tell you, the last few days in NFL, this may have been the wildest last few days I can ever remember in 40 years of covering the National Football League. And Charles, before we start with anything, I always got to ask you the simple question, where are you? You could be anywhere.
I could be anywhere, and I love that about my job. I'm actually at home. I'm in Orlando, Florida now, and I'm at home for a few days and happy about it. But I love how you started this about how wild it's been in the NFL, and Terence, you've covered all the major sports, and I think we both remember when baseball absolutely dominated all off seasons.
Sure. What
were the farm systems doing? Who was coming up from the farm system? Remember, we got every box score.
That's right.
In the sporting news, so you could keep track of how Steve Bye-Bye Balboni was doing down in Double-A, and all the things that you wanted to know. How was my favorite pitcher doing? Are we going to have a 3-for-1 trade to, for a team that wants to win now and give up some young talent? They dominated it. What was it called? The Hot Stove League?
That's exactly right.
The old Hot Stove League. Well, the NFL has usurped it from everyone. And this movement, I think, Terence, this type of movement guarantees that they continue to hold the in the offseason because people like movement. They like things to talk about.
Sure.
Static lineups like we grew up with where you could name the Packers lineup for the dates 1960 through 1967. Those days are long gone. And everyone's eager to see if their team can benefit from free agency and start dreaming about a championship.
Yeah, you're right. And, there's so much to discuss. And let's get the low-hanging fruit out of the way. And, the Steelers, right? The breakup of the Killer Bees, Ben Roethlisberger from Miami of Ohio. Since I'm from Miami of Ohio, I got to throw that in there. LeVeon Bell, and you got Anthony Brown, the three Bs. And I'll just start off with this, Charles. To me, this is just flat out crazy. You've got you got to be well. There's no question that Anthony Brown and Bell, they're leaving for the money because otherwise they got to be a little goofy in the head if they think that going to the Raiders and the Jets respectfully is a better football move than staying with the Steelers. But that's just me. What say you?
Well, that tells you that it's not all about the absolute ideal that everyone espouses, which is winning the Lombardi Trophy. Now, what they'll tell you is, I'm just going to go somewhere else, and I'll be the piece or the huge piece that helps them get to the Lombardi Trophy.
Yes.
Okay? So that's how you solve that one because that's what you say. But the bottom line is I'm with you. Pittsburgh, year in and year out, is a contender for the Lombardi Trophy. Oakland has been in the playoffs once in the last approximate 20 years, and that's not exaggeration.
Right.
The Jets have not exactly been knocking it out of the park. Their 2 AFC Championship game appearances under Rex Ryan both came off of wild cards, and I believe they were 9-7. So they had to have an upset or two along the way to get there, but it wasn't built to last, quote unquote. So that's where you look at it and you say the Steelers are an organization that is always built to last. These other ones are trying to get back to that stage. Okay, we'll see if it turns out for you. But I'll just leave it with this. Let's just take those two out of it.
Mm-hmm.
How many of these free agents we're going to talk about actually visited the city that they're going to play in,
Ooh.
sat down with the head coaches and the organization, the GM and everyone, and said, how do I fit and what's your plan for the organization? And how many of them toured the facilities that everyone's building because they want to try and recruit free agents and make it better for the current players that they have? How many of these people actually did that? I'm waiting to hear of one.
Yeah,
I've not heard that yet. I've not seen the tour. Remember the Reggie White tour way back
when?
Oh,
yeah.
And you're spotted at the facility and you're seen there and whatever.
Sure.
I don't know of anyone so far that going to that city tipped them over the edge, and that's where they had the meeting. I'm not saying it didn't happen, but I've yet to see that video. I'm yet to see that guy land and walk into the building and talk about it and leave without a deal and go to another city. People are making deals based off of what's the best offer for me right now and maybe a few other factors that maybe we might not be aware of. So it's a whole different ball game now. I mean, who is it? Trent Brown, the offensive tackle, went from New England to, or was it Oakland?
I'm not sure.
No, yeah, it was New England to Oakland. Yes,
okay.
He went New England to Oakland, and he agreed to terms 9 minutes after the tampering period was open. 9 minutes. So,
well,
so there's a whole lot of other factors going into play here now.
This is such an interesting point you just brought up here, and getting back to, like you mentioned, Reggie back in the day. And remember, they had to sell him and sell everybody on that it was perfectly okay to freeze the death in Green Bay, Wisconsin. And once he went, then that kind of opened the floodgates. But now, as you say, it's all about the bottom line.
Yeah, that's what it seems to be for a lot of players. And again, if we sat down with them, Terence, they would tell us, no, this team is right on the verge. No, I'm the biggest piece. I'm the one, and I wanted to go to a place where I was going to bring a team along. Listen, you've heard it a million times in your career. And I'm not saying that they don't actually believe it. Yeah. Okay? But the bottom line is what you said. If you just presented those scenarios, where's your best chance of trying to get to the Super Bowl the fastest? In this scenario, Pittsburgh would win out. So that just tells you how bad the breakup has been for a variety of reasons. Le'Veon Bell has his reasons. Antonio Brown has his reasons. And Ben Roethlisberger now is remaining silent after, before being, fully involved in this thing. And I think Pittsburgh wants everyone to be quiet now and kind of reboot and start over. And it wouldn't surprise me at all if they rebooted, started over, and did quite well. It wouldn't surprise me one bit. It'd be like Seattle last year. Yeah. All those great veterans either retiring or leaving, and all of a sudden you had quiet and just a bunch of kids who wanted to play, and Pete Carroll just got to coach again. And guess what? They ended up in the playoffs last year.
Yeah, and that's another good point. And I tell you, I want to get back to the free agency thing in a minute, but since we have you, I've got to talk to you about one other thing. I know you do the scouting combine and do a great job with that. And I just got to ask you about this Kyler Murray thing. I mean, I don't care if this guy's the size of a munchkin from the Wizard of Oz or what his hand size is. I mean, he is clearly the best quarterback in the draft, right? And we're going to have you back to talk about the draft when we get closer to that. But am I missing something here? Why all the big fuss? I mean, isn't he clearly the best quarterback to take in the upcoming April draft?
He is a playmaker that has been on the horizon for a lot of years that in a lot of ways got rejected by the NFL prior to the recent surge of Russell Wilson. And then last year, Baker Mayfield going at the top of the draft at right around 6 feet tall. Because, they always wanted that 6'3" and 6'4", big, strong guy, throw the ball from the pocket, etc.
Yes.
But since the NFL has adopted so much of what college football does now, it has opened the door to these guys being successful, being available to play. But the thing is, they still have to make plays from the pocket. And when you watch Kyler Murray's tape, the majority of the big throws he made were from the pocket.
Yes.
So he does that, and he has the movement ability and skills. I think finally the NFL is, open to accepting this type of a player very easily, and Kyler Murray's the beneficiary. The guy, the one guy that I'm looking at, when I say one guy, there were a bunch, because you saw it along the way, Terence.
Sure.
Guys that got switched to other positions, guys that never got a chance. But I'm thinking about Doug Flutie right now.
Right.
And Doug Flutie's like, I came along 20 years too soon, And because if Doug Flutie's in this year's draft, he and Kyler Murray are dueling it out, aren't they? Because
exactly.
They're very similar players, big arms, great touch, playmaking ability, excellent athletes. Because Doug Flutie's one of the most underrated athletes I've seen out there. I mean, he's terrific. So, yeah, I think somewhere Doug Flutie's going, my goodness. I'd love to be playing right now because I could really do some damage. But anyway.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, I just had to go on that little sidetrack. Well, let's get back to the movement here the last few days. And you got to start also with Odell Beckham Jr. going to the Browns, and you got Baker Mayfield already there. Kareem Hunt was just recently just suspended 8 games by the NFL, but, you got to figure he's going to play at some point. Nick Chubb and Oliver Vernon. I mean, Are the Cleveland Browns going to win a Super Bowl this year? What's going to happen? What's this all about?
How great is that? I think their odds started at like 150 to 1 prior to this offseason, and they're down to 17 to 1.
Wow.
When the Beckham trade went through, I think they dropped all the way to 17 to 1. So what it has done now, though, is they got a very short honeymoon as the new lovable Browns.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the team, oh my God, going from 0-16. Look at how they're built. Look how scrappy they are. Look how fiery the young quarterback is. Wow, they got a brand new coach in Freddie Kitchens because he got a battlefield promotion and called plays, and they averaged 7 yards per play. So the rookie quarterback had to say, I like this guy. And Brad said, okay, he's your new head coach.
Right.
And off you go. We haven't seen Freddie Kitchens coach a game in the NFL yet. Mm-hmm. So this will be interesting now because the Browns went from lovable to having a target on them in no time. And this is where things are going to get interesting because now you go from, hey, let's see if we can really battle with these guys and upset someone to, guys, in an unsettled AFC North, Pittsburgh's struggling with their issues. Cincinnati's abysmal right now. And Baltimore's trying to get it figured out with a young quarterback. You guys should be right in the mix. And anything less than that, Terence, that would be a big, big change for them because now you got to deal with everyone saying you're not meeting expectations. And when was the last time Cleveland had to worry about meeting expectations? They just had to worry about trying to win a game.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Now we go from that to, hey, you guys are right in the mix to win the division. Whoa. Okay. Go get them, guys. But they do have the talent, and I like the way they're putting together the team. Let's see if they can handle the external pressure that comes along with it.
Well, and let's go to the opposite of that, okay? The team that Odell Beckham came from, the New York Giants. What in the world are they doing? Do they know? Does anybody know?
I believe that they do know, and I think they finally figured out it's a bigger rebuild than maybe any of us anticipated. I think that they went to the playoffs. Well, remember they went to the playoffs that 1 year under Ben McAdoo.
Yeah.
And we thought they weren't far away. And then the next year was a disaster. McAdoo was out. Eli gets benched. I mean, we can go on and on and on. It was horrendous. So they clean house, GM on down, head coach, GM, the whole deal. And they come back the next year, and us in the media, and I'm not saying everyone, but I'm going to point. I'm part of it too.
Yeah.
The consensus was the Giants could push for a playoff spot last year. That was consensus.
Exactly.
Eli could play better. You know, they made the move for Nate Solder in the offensive line. They drafted Will Hernandez at left guard. We can go right on down the line. And it didn't happen. And I think that Dave Gettleman, the GM, who missed part of last year due to battling cancer, he and the Mara family have said, you know something? We overestimated. We're not as good as we thought. So let's go ahead and really do the rebuild now. And that's why the speculation with getting the extra draft pick on Odell Beckham, one, it wasn't working with Odell because they paid him the big money and he was still criticizing the team.
Right.
So they were like, okay, if this isn't going to work, get the extra pick. They've got to fix the quarterback position, meaning they'll go one more year with Eli. But they need to draft Eli's heir apparent in this one. And Dwayne Haskins from Ohio State, Kyler Murray, they're both going to be under consideration for that.
Well, you know, then you go the opposite way. Well, somewhat. And this is kind of an interesting team to me. The Baltimore Ravens. You got a lot of goings and a lot of comings. I'll put it that way. I mean, you know, Terrell Suggs is not there anymore after being there for a billion years, and then they get an Earl Thomas and a Mark Ingram. How do you see the big picture for the Baltimore Ravens? Are they back? Are they staying in the mix, even more so in the mix, or what's going on there?
I think even more so in the mix. I mean, the loss of Suggs is going to hurt. The loss of Zadarius Smith is going to hurt. But they tend to find guys who can play. And it's kind of the Baltimore way on defense. And offensively, I think signing Ingram was huge for them because they finished last year with Gus Edwards as their lead runner. And that's fine. But Mark Ingram, who's been looking for an opportunity to truly seize being the lead runner, because the last couple of years have been great with Alvin Kamara. But let's be honest about it. Most people see Kamara as the key in that offense. Now it's his because Baltimore's a heavy run team. That's what they're going to do. That's how they're built. That's how they're constructed. That's how they want to play. And with a young quarterback like Lamar Jackson and his legs, you definitely want to be a run-heavy team because he'll operate better off of play action. And then when you sign an Ingram and then you bring Earl Thomas to the back end of that defense, who's naturally upset that he's not being mentioned as one of the top safeties in the league anymore.
Sure.
Even though he is. His big deal is he has to stay healthy. He had a remarkable streak of over 100-plus games with consecutive starts, but the last 2 to 3 seasons, he's been hurt every year. And that's the thing he's trying to avoid this time. Because when he's healthy, he's still one of the better ones out there. He's one of the best. I call him one of the best erasers in the game.
No doubt.
Meaning whatever happens in front of you, Earl Thomas can erase whatever mistake you and your crew made.
And then, of course, the biggest and the best thing about the Baltimore Ravens, their head coach, John Harbaugh, from Miami of Ohio.
Miami of Ohio.
but I digress. Yeah, let's finish up with some odds and ends here. One of the things that interesting that's happened, Terry Bridgewater. Now, this seems pretty bizarre to me. What am I missing? I mean, so he stays with the New Orleans Saints to become a backup, to remain a backup with Drew Brees. He had a chance to be a starting quarterback with the Miami Dolphins. What's that all about?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm not quite sure how the money equaled out or didn't equal out. I'm not quite sure about that, Terence. But on the surface, you're saying here's a guy who's got a chance to go with the new head coach and be his guy. Brian Flores, the new head coach with the Miami Dolphins. And Teddy decided to stay in New Orleans. Drew Brees coming near the end, even though, he continues to be Drew Brees at 40 years old.
Sure.
He likes the system there. He's been being groomed now by Sean Payton to be the next guy. He may have felt like that was the spot for him. I'd love to know how the contracts broke down, though, to be frank with you, because I think that's a bigger telltale than anything else.
Okay.
And I'd be surprised if Miami had him in and didn't say, if you come here, you're our guy. Mm-hmm. That would be a surprise. And, we might find out later. They said, well, we had you in. We're going to have you compete. If that's the case, he's better off staying in New Orleans, absorbing that system, getting that paycheck, and in a year or two, he could be the guy.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of quarterbacks, Nick Foles leaves Philly, goes to the Jacksonville Jaguars. What does that do for both of those franchises, negatively or positively?
Well, for Philadelphia, this is where now Carson Wentz doesn't have to look over his shoulder anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It's now his team. The flip side is he'd better play to that level. Now, we saw him do that his second year in the league.
Right.
Because if he doesn't hurt his knee, he's the MVP of the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
And then Nick Foles takes the team to a Super Bowl. So that was a tough one for him. Like, wow, okay, all right, that's my team. I'll get it back next year. And he does. He gets hurt again. And then Foles has another big playoffs. That was tougher. And I even asked Doug Peterson about it. He said, yeah, this has been very difficult for Carson. He's a great team kid, but second year in a row he's been injured. Second year in a row his backups played really well. You're a young kid, that'll affect you.
Uh-huh.
Now he doesn't have to worry about that anymore. He just has to go play. And if he plays like the Carson Wentz we've seen, the Eagles will be fine. I don't put too much stock in the fact that the team's going to not, we love Nick Foles. Look, teams love guys that play well.
Right.
And that's what it comes down to. And if Wentz plays well, all that will go away. Did they like Foles? Of course they did. He made magic for them.
Mm-hmm.
The flip side is for Jacksonville, they have a consistent quarterback now, or what they believe is a consistent quarterback. You know what you're going to get with Foles in terms of his ability to throw the ball downfield with a lot better accuracy than what you got with Blake Bortles. And that's what hurt that team in a big way. And with that defense they have, they can't afford to waste it by having a quarterback with inconsistent play, because that defense is built to play really well.
Mm-hmm.
And they took a step back last year, Terrence, and I think in no small part because the offensive inconsistencies they had, it affected the defense in a big way.
Yeah, and I guess wrapping up here, and you look at some of these other moves, you got D Ford going from Kansas City to San Francisco, and C.J. Mosley. We talked about the Ravens, and he's with the Jets right now. Are there any moves that have taken place over the last few days that you think is kind of under the radar, where you say, "My gosh, that's a tremendous upgrade for a particular team," or going the other way, it was like, "I can't believe they let that person get away"? Is there anything out there like that?
I'm going to split the difference with you on that, and I'm going to focus on one move. Trey Flowers, the defensive end from New England, going to Detroit to play for Matt Patricia, who knows the New England system so intimately, having been there for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
The reason I bring that up is Trey Flowers is a very good defensive end. But now he's gotten the money that says he's the best defensive end in the NFL, which I don't believe he is.
Right.
Okay? That's fine. But now, if he gets 8.5 sacks, which is a good year in what he's done in New England, That's a disappointment because Ziggy Ansah, when healthy, was a double-digit sack guy. The problem with Ansah was he was barely healthy, and that was an issue for them. So if he goes in and gives them their normal numbers,
right,
it's going to feel like a disappointment because the money being paid says you're better than that, and I don't know that he is. He plays really well in the playoffs, always does a good job in the Super Bowls, but throughout the year, you're going to get a guy that they're hoping will be double-digit sacks, but Terence, he hasn't been so far in his career.
Right.
So is he going to now naturally jump up and be that in Detroit? So, again, I don't blame him one bit. If someone's going to pay me that kind of money, I'm sprinting to Detroit to sign that contract. But what comes with it is the expectation that you're now a better player. Will he be? We'll find out.
Yeah, that's a huge thing to find out with that type of money too.
Yeah. The good thing is he'll have the money. The tough part is the team will be paying him the money, and if it doesn't work out, the fans will be once again going, "What the heck?"
Right.
But at least for Trey Flowers, he's like, "Hey, listen, you guys knew what you were getting. I signed the deal. I'm playing up to, I'm playing as best I can." I'm hoping he has double-digit sack here, so he doesn't have to deal with these questions at all.
Well, we've been talking to Charles Davis of Fox Sports, and I tell you what, Charles, what's a perfect quarterback rating? 160. What is it?
158.3, I believe.
158.
That's a perfect day. I believe it's somewhere in that neighborhood.
Well, when it comes to your broadcast, you're on that scale. You're like a 160.5. You never have a bad telecast, and I think everybody out there will attest to that. And we're going to have you back again once we get closer to the draft because you're a draft expert on all that sort of thing. And you've been listening to another Terrence's Take. We'll be back next week. I don't know if it can be as good as this one, but we'll try. See you next week.